Hello, this is Baal Kadmon, and I would like to thank you for watching and or listening to this podcast. Last week, I released my year in review 2021, and I mentioned my course on the 72 Demons of the Name, and a lot of people actually did not know that I released that. And so in this podcast, I'm going to supply a video from the course. It's called, Do Demons Have Free Will? It's a little controversial, but there are a couple of twists and turns there. So anyway, I hope you enjoy it. This particular video is in the special sections portion of the course. If you are interested in taking the course, you can see the link below. I hope you enjoy it. Do demons have free will? In the last video, I discussed a rather benign topic. In this one, we will ramp it up a bit. I will discuss the idea of free will as it pertains to demons. This video is being presented as food for thought. On the surface, it seems silly for me to bring this up. We clearly have stories of angels who fell from the heavens because they made a choice and decision to go against the divine order, a rebellion, if you will. We saw this in section 1. So it appears the question of free will as it pertains to demons is an open and shut case. But things aren't so simple. I say this because traditions have a way of contradicting themselves ever so subtly that if you are not paying attention, huge inconsistencies can go unnoticed. But when discovered, can cause some confusion and angst. I find this especially true of the topic of free will versus determinism, not just of demons, but in general. In our day-to-day lives, we operate with near full autonomy of the will. I say near full because we aren't willing our hearts to pump or for our eyes to see. Those are all happening behind the scenes. But you are taking this time to watch, hear, or read this as an act of will that you have chosen to exercise. And because this exercising of the will is something that dominates nearly our every action and speech, we tend to ignore the little moments when our free will bumps up against moments that are dreadfully deterministic. It is dreadful because there is no thought more imprisoning than the thought that any of our thoughts are predetermined or deterministic in nature. If you want to read a disturbing book on this, take a look at The Illusion of Conscious Will. Hell, even the cover is ominous. I personally feel there is an interplay of free will and deterministic forces in our universe, and we dance between the two as we go through life. A perfect example is astrology. It is funny just how uncanny some of these things are. Have you ever had your chart read and nearly all main elements of your life can be gleaned from it? Patterns that you thought were just you are actually very common for your sign. I am Capricorn, and wow, other Capricorns have the same thought process and characteristics that I do. It's truly uncanny. Yet, we can override those tendencies with our exercise of the will and, of course, magic. Magic is a perfect example of the exercising of power against some deterministic forces. What is even more interesting is that in some magical practices, the exercise of will while using the deterministic powers of planets can create massive changes. Another more mundane example is when we send a satellite into space. We are exercising our will in such a way that we use the deterministic aspects of gravity to our own use. Continuing with that example, one of the laws of physics states that an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and the same direction unless acted upon by an unbalanced or outside force. The fact it stays in motion is entirely deterministic and can be measured down to the last decimal. But the interference that will stop the object from moving may not be so predictable. It could be simply putting your hand in front of it and stopping it. So your act of will short-circuited the deterministic law that was otherwise in place and would have stayed in place theoretically forever. There are many examples, of course, and these few I just mentioned display the perfect intersection of free will and deterministic forces at play. See what I mean? It goes even deeper than that, but that is for another time, and I don't want to lose focus on the purpose of this video. Just know that I wrote a college paper on free will and biblical theology. Let's just say that the theologian professor was a bit shaken by it. He gave me an A-, that bastard. That was definitely an A+ material. I argued that free will can't exist if there is an omniscient God. But again, not for this course. Back to demons and free will. Thanks for indulging me for a moment. Admit it, you love those digressions. Okay, If you recall in section 1, we had a few events in which it appears angels fell from the heaven. Let's just recap from the Bible in the book of Enoch. Genesis chapter 6, verse 1 through 4. When human beings began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of the humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal, and their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. It is in Genesis chapter 6, verse 1 through 4 that we first encounter these angelic beings called the sons of God. We encounter Nephilim, or the mighty men of old, the men of renown. In the Bible, it is not clear exactly who they are. However, in the book of Enoch, it is clear who they are. They are fallen angels, the early progenitors of the demonic. Let's take a look. 1 Enoch chapter 6, verse 1 through 2. It states, In those days when the children of man had multiplied, it happened that there were born unto them handsome and beautiful daughters. And the angels, the children of heaven, saw them and desired them, and they said to one another, Come, let us choose wives for ourselves from among the daughters of man, and beget us children. As you can see, these passages are the main passages that indicate the fall of angels who became demons. So as you see, they exercised their free will. Pretty simple and straightforward. But yet, when we investigate the traditions around this, it gets more complicated. In the Jewish tradition, it is largely understood that angels have no free will. Not everyone thinks this, but many do. If you look it up, you'll find more information against the free will of angels than you will find arguments for it. It states in Shenei Luchot HaBrit, an exegetical text in Judaism, 6, Why should creatures who have no free will, such as angels, be paid for their services? This verse was on a broader topic on services that should be paid. If you notice, the text implies directly that angels have no free will. In a commentary called Rabbeinu Bahya Vayikra 191, it states, The purpose of the human species is to be so governed by its intellect that it will remain free from sin, just like the angels in heaven. As you can see, angels are free of sin and without the urge to sin. In a Kabbalistic exegetical text called Shar HaEmunah V'Yesod HaChasidut, chapter 4, verse 2, it states, For even though the supernal angels are great in strength and always fulfill God's word, still their service is not ranked as truly mighty, since they are programmed to serve and obey Him. They have no evil inclination that they may conquer, and do not have a body to contend with in order to serve God. For this reason, the passage in Genesis, Let us make a man, and he will rule over you. From this understanding and from this power of the intellect comes man's power of choice, for it is God's desire that man serve Him with his free will. Here we have another text that makes it clear that angels are programmed to obey God and that man is literally the only being with free will. If this is true, we have a huge problem. The problem is, it throws the entire fallen angel idea into a quandary. If angels do not have free will, and these demons are fallen angels, then what is going on here? Well, we can take it at face value and say the angelic fall never happened, since the fall implies the angels exercise their free will, which they don't actually have. If they don't have free will, Western demonology as we know it collapses under its own weight and is pulverized into dust when it hits the ground. But then there are other texts that say they do have free will in the Hebrew tradition, but with a catch. We already know the Christian tradition believes angels have free will, so I won't mention Christianity here. Here are a few examples from the Jewish tradition that states that angels make mistakes and have free will. Rambam, in the Guide to the Perplexed, Part 2, 7.1, angels are conscious of what they do and have free will in the sphere of action entrusted to them, just as we have free will within our province, and in accordance with the power given to us with our very existence. In the book of Job, chapter 4, verses 17 through 18, it states, Shall mortal man be just before God? Shall a man be pure before his Maker? Behold, he putteth no trust in his servants, and his angels he chargeth with folly. In one Yom Kippur prayer it states, The angels are dismayed, they are seized by fear and trembling as they proclaim, Behold the day of judgment, for all the hosts of heaven are brought for judgment, they shall not be guiltless in your eyes. As you can see, it does appear angels are not perfect and are subject to judgment. Now here is where it gets interesting. Although it does appear the angels do have free will, there is a difference in the nature of their free will when compared to our own. Here is an interesting example of the difference between human and angelic free will. Here is an example and commentary from Genesis chapter 19 verse 13. It states, "For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxed great before the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it." The "we" here are angels that were sent to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Now here is where the rabbis get a bit nitpicky, but it is a good illustration of the point. So we see that the angels start the verse with, "For we will destroy the city." A rabbi named Choma, who is the son of a great rabbi from the Talmud named Rabbi Hanina, brings up another verse from Genesis to address the angels' remarks from Sodom and Gomorrah. He quotes Genesis' story of Jacob's ladder, Genesis chapter 28 verse 12. "And he dreamed, and behold a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and behold the angels of God ascending and descending on it." Note that it states that the angels first ascended the ladder. Rabbi Choma states that this is the reverse of how things should be. Shouldn't angels first descend the ladder? Why does the verse start that they ascended first? He goes on to say that because the angels were so haughty in implying that they were the ones who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah and not God himself through them, they were cast to stay on earth, and after they atoned for their sin, they were allowed to ascend to heaven. I know it seems like a stretch, but this is what is written there. So the angels that were ascending were those who took credit for God's handiwork. The angels were essentially punished, and what does punishment imply in the Bible? That a sin was committed. In the rabbinic tradition, there are two types of sin. The first kind of sin emanates from the evil inclination or nature that is mostly found in humanity. The second type of sin is one that is not through evil inclination, but rather through a mistake or distorted idea of what your mission should be. Here is an odd story in the Talmud Chagiga 15a. It discusses a situation in which the angel Metatron was to record the deeds of the nation of Israel. So while doing so, he sat down. He said, "It is taught as a tradition that on high there is no sitting and no competition and no back and no weariness. Perhaps, God forfend, there are two divinities." Thereupon they led Metatron forth and punished him with 60 fiery lashes, saying to him, "Why didn't you stand up when you saw him?" The tradition states that there is no sitting for angels, and Metatron, the highest of angels, was punished. So you see, it wasn't that Metatron did something out of the evil inclination, but simply a mistake or misunderstanding in the rules that apply to him in heaven. I know, it seems like such a shallow and petty thing, but that is the story. So the issue is, based on what we know above, it does appear the fallen angels did in fact exercise their free will, but maybe not out of evil inclination, but a misinterpretation of their true role. This may sound like a stretch, but there is indication that this was the case in the book of Jubilees, a book we discussed earlier. Here, let's take a look. If one does not pay attention, it will slip right by. Jubilees chapter 4 verse 15. "The angels of the Lord, who were called watchers, descended to the earth to teach mankind and to do what is just and upright upon the earth." You see, they initially came down to help mankind to teach what was upright. So in Jubilees chapter 4 verse 15, the intention was good, but they got ensnared in a way that they lost track of their mission, as it states in Jubilees chapter 4 verse 22. "The watchers who had sinned with the daughters of men, because these had begun to mix with earthly women, so that they became defiled." And Jubilees chapter 7 verse 21, "Due to fornication that the watchers had illicit intercourse apart from the mandate of their authority with women. When they married of them whomever they chose, they committed the first acts of uncleanliness." This is starkly contrasted from the book of Genesis and the book of Enoch, in which the watchers appear to have malevolent intent from the beginning. It seems that if anything, it was humanity's ability to exercise their free will, informed by the evil inclination, that corrupted the angels, and not the other way around. The angels came down pure and became corrupt when they encountered us. Doesn't it seem that way from the above verses? As you can see, The free will issue is not so clear when it comes to angels and demons, at least as it pertains to their intention of the exercising of the will. Was the fall of the angels an intentional act of rebellion, or was it simply a mistaken judgment by the angels who descended to earth to teach mankind and to do what is just and upright upon the earth? I will let you decide. There you have it. A video from my course, The 72 Demons of the Name. I know the video is a little controversial, but as you saw, it's not quite as clear-cut as it seems. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you are interested in enrolling in the course, the link is in the description box below. It is a very, very comprehensive course, so it is going to keep you busy for a while. With that, I will speak to you soon. So mote it be.